Hey guys, so today we're playing with makeup. I thought we would just have a little bit of fun. I have been very influenced by this 2016 trend on Instagram. I also received a product in PR that is celebrating its 10th anniversary. I believe its launch was in 2016, and we're going to be using that today. But I thought we would take this walk down memory lane together. We'll talk about some trends that I remember from 2016. I started my channel in 2017. So 2016 was a year that I really dove into beauty YouTube. I was not wearing a lot of makeup then, but boy, was my interest piqued. I was watching, I think like the rest of us, Jaclyn Hill, Kathleen Lights, Tati, Desi Perkins. I mean, all the biggies, Emily Noel, all the biggies. And it was such an exciting time for makeup. We were learning so much on YouTube. I think, most of us were probably still using those sponge tip applicators that came in eyeshadow palettes. We didn't know about brushes, and yeah, it was just such an exciting time. So anyway, I thought it would be fun to do a 2016 look and a 2026 look and how different it is and how much has changed, at least for me. I mean, you may still do your makeup like this, which is great, totally great. But I never really fully did my makeup like 2016. I wanted to, I will admit. There were parts of me that were like, I wish I could like go out like that every single day. I didn't have the patience. 2026, Michelle, this is definitely more my speed. But I thought I would play around with these two looks, do half of my face 2016, the other half in 2026. So if you're interested in seeing how I came up with these two very different looks, then just stick around. So let's start at the tippy top. We're going to do primers. Primers were huge in 2016, and the focus was really about filling in your pores. I luckily, unfortunately, don't really have a ton of large pores. I have them a little bit here, I think like most people, but I never really got into the pore filling kind of primers. I also felt like they were great for oilier skin. And I think, just generalizing here, but I think oilier skin has larger pores. So I always felt like it dried out my skin. A lot of those really like silicone type of primers, but like the Benefit Porefessional, that was really, really huge. Like that Too Faced Hangover Primer. Do you remember that? It had like the RX on there. That was really huge. And what's another? Smashbox, the Smashbox primers. I mean, all of them, huge, huge, huge. But I never really had them, got into them. And so I was digging around my collection. Even if I did have these products back in 2016, I don't have them now. But I was like, do I have any primers that do that? Because I have really dry skin. And most of the primers that I use today are, glowy and they're moisturizing, all of that. But I do have one, and hopefully this will work. This will help mimic that 2016 look. It is this Blur Expert powder from Sicily. Now, when Sicily first came out with this, I tried it as just like a regular kind of like pressed powder. I used it in different ways. I lightly dusted it all over to set my makeup. I used it like with that rolling action or like pressing it into my skin. I used it all these different ways in terms of a powder. And someone from Sicily actually reached out to me and they were like, try using it as a primer. Try using it as like a pore filling type of primer, like a skin smoothing, blurring type of primer. And when I used it like that, it actually worked out really, really well. So we're going to start with the Blur Expert primer. And when I first tried this from Sicily, they only had one shade and it was actually kind of deep. But since then, they've come out with a lighter shade. This one, this is shade 0 Light. And I like to use it with a flat top kabuki brush. So this is Sonia G's Smooth Buffer. I'm just going to go ahead and pick some of this up. This is like one of those baked products, so there's not a lot of kick up. It doesn't even look like you're picking up any product. It looks totally smooth on there, but when you look at your brush, you'll see that some powder is there. But you definitely need a dense brush to pick up this powder. I'm only doing this side of my face as 2016, and I have to keep telling myself that because we just do our whole face out of habit. So I'm going to do what I do with this powder, which is just press it into my skin. And it really does a good job blurring. But as someone with dry skin, I do have to be careful with this, but we're going to go nuts with this today because we're bringing 2016 back. And God, do you see that blurring action? It is really, really very, very effective. If you have large pores, this is actually a great option in terms of a primer, if that's all you want. I know a lot of primers, they're sticky, they're tacky, so they help like the longevity of your foundation or any makeup you put on top of it. But if you're looking really just to kind of like blur and blur out larger pores, this Blur Expert from Sicily is quite nice. So in stark contrast to that, we're going to fast forward to today, 2026, and the primer that I would choose, and that's the Dior Forever Glow Veil. This is a really nice hydrating primer with a little bit of glow. So I'm just going to shake this up a little bit, and I'm just going to pump right onto my face here. You can see it's just kind of like a lotion. And I've just got this super huge jumbo brush from BK Beauty. It's their 105, but I really like working primer in with this brush. So I'm going to stick to this side of my face for our 2026 current day look. You know, of all the years I've been on YouTube, I don't think I've ever done a video like this where I've done like two very distinctly different looks on either side of my face. Have I ever done that? I don't think I have. And I remember Nikki tutorials doing it for the like power of makeup look, and that I remember that video. That thumbnail, that whole video was so cool. All right, so we've got primers down. Let's jump back to 2016. We're gonna do foundation. And again, foundations were very high coverage, very, very matte. And some of the foundations that were really big back in 2016 were there was one from like Makeup Forever. It was like an ultra HD one. I remember that was like medium to full coverage. Estee Lauder Double Wear, that was huge. And they just recently reformulated that. I think people are up in arms, up in arms about that. The Armani Luminous Silk, that was very popular, has been very popular. They just recently reformulated that. That I believe is glowier than the previous version. And then there's one foundation that I remember Jaclyn Hill loved. So I did watch a lot of Jaclyn Hill back in 2016, and she loved that Josie Marin foundation. What was it called? But it was kind of glowy, because I think Jaclyn Hill has always had dry skin, but that was kind of glowy. I think it was called like the Vibrancy foundation. It had that really colorful bottle. Anyway, most foundations out there were medium to high coverage. I think the finishes sort of varied, but I think matte was very, very popular. I was never really a matte foundation gal. It just didn't suit me. It wasn't the look that I liked. And again, I have dry skin. So the closest I have, and no matter, because I've got a lot of powder, I've got a lot of powder to use. The closest I have, I think, is the Westman Atelier Vital Skin foundation stick. This just has a very nice like skin-like finish. I would not say that this foundation is very matte or dry looking or anything like that, but I do like using this foundation stick generally with something that's like a little bit more moisturizing. So I do think with this powder down as a primer, it is going to be very, very skin-like. So I have, let's see, Atelier 1 and Atelier 0.5 as the shades. I think 0.5 is my shade. So I'm just going to generously apply this all over, because again, the coverage was high back, it was very high back in 2016. Okay, I'm just gonna blend this in. I won't worry too much about the eye area because we've got a concealer. Oh, we sure do. We've got a concealer. Just putting a bit more on to get the level of coverage we saw back in 2016. Wow, I haven't had this much fun playing with makeup in a while. I hope you guys are laughing along with me. Okay, all right. And you can see foundation applies really beautifully over that powder. That was also a really interesting trend. I think that came after 2016, maybe more like 2018, 2019. And it was Jackie Aina who really started, I'm sure she was not the very first person to do this, of course, but she really made it very popular to put powder down. I don't remember what the technique was called, but to put powder down and then foundation on top, and it helped the powder, excuse me, it helped the foundation sort of like stay put, like the powder like helped adhere it to the skin. Again, that was never really my cup of tea because I didn't always necessarily wear powder. Again, dry skin, but I remember her skin looking gorgeous. Okay, so that's the Westman Atelier Vital Skin Foundation Stick. Again, I don't think this is exactly a 2016 sort of foundation, but this is the closest that I have. Okay, for my current foundation look, I'm gonna go in with something that you guys know. I use this quite a bit, but it is a Sarah Creole combo of all combos. So I've got the Face Flex and her Moisture Source, and this gives me customized level of coverage. I really like a light coverage base, and then this makes my skin look really well hydrated, really, really juicy. So I usually just use a couple swipes of the concealer and then a couple of drops of the Moisture Source, and I just blend it around on the back of my hand. So I'm using shade number 1 in the Face Flex. There, nice light coverage. We're retaining that glow from the Dior primer. I feel like my skin, you can still see my real skin, but it's been evened out a little bit with that little bit of coverage from the Face Flex. I love it. I love it. So 2026, 2016. Okay, now in terms of concealer, this is the product that probably gave me the idea for this video. Tarte just sent me their Shape Tape because it is America's #1 concealer brand, and I believe they're celebrating 10 years. 10 years. So I think this came out in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I could never get into this concealer. I never could. I ran out and I got it because everyone loved it. And I was applying it like everyone else. And I was like, this looks like total crap on my face. What is going on? I use less and whatever. Anyway, it never worked out for me because I have dry skin, and I don't think this is a concealer that is great for dry skin. I think you can use it really, really lightly because it is very, very high coverage. But back in 2016, all of the beauty gurus here on YouTube, they were doing that giant triangle situation. That I actually have not seen people do in a really long time, but let's give it a shot. So I've got the Shape Tape in shade 16N. It is fair, light, neutral. And so what they would all do is one giant swipe down here. I'm even doing this right. And then this. And they talked about how it was like this way to kind of like spotlight your eyes. Guys, this was not, I'm sorry, this was not a good look. I don't know if this is what you do still, but this, no, this never ever worked for me. So I'm really curious how this is gonna look nowadays. And they brought it right up against their nose. I mean, this shade is really light. And then down and up. I'm gonna have to put some on my eyelid because it looks too crazy. This is so intense, but I feel like this is what everyone was doing. I mean, I use the term everyone loosely, but you know what I'm saying. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. 2016 concealer down. Let's move over to 2026. Now, what would I do today for concealer? I would probably take something like the Sarah Creole Face Flex, and since I have it out, I'll just go ahead and use it. And I would probably, you guys have seen me do this 1,000 times, do a couple of dots, place them strategically, and then take a concealer brush and just blend it in, sticking with that light coverage, glowy look. Oh my God, I'm terrified. Every time I like turn my face, this is terrifying. I need to know down below in the comment section, did you guys do this? The whole triangle thing? Did you do it back in 2016? Are you still doing it? No judgment. If it works for you, it works for you. Are you still doing it? Or are you looking back on 2016 and being like, wow, that was a lot. That was a lot of concealer. I need to know. So let's move on to, let me think, because I have a cream bronzer, but I'm gonna be putting a lot of powder on. Okay, I think what I'm gonna do actually is use a powder bronzer just to make things a little bit easier. The cream bronzer that I had in mind was the cream bronzer from Chanel. Now, this is now called the Healthy Glow Bronzing Cream, but back in the day in 2016, when this was very, very popular, they only had one shade and it was called like the Chanel Soleil Tan de Chanel, something like that. I can't believe I can't remember. But it was like a lot of words that meant the same thing, like Soleil, tan, bronze, whatever. Anyway, I was gonna use this, but I think I'll pass. It's different now anyway. So what I'm gonna do is just go straight to powdering. And what we loved to do in 2016 was bake. I remember watching people bake like all day, all night. But I can't remember if I actually tried this. I mean, just knowing, I mean, always having dry skin, I just knew that it just looked like a lot of powder. Looked like a heck of a lot of powder. So I was like, I don't know if I should do that, but anyway, we're gonna do it today. And I'm using one of the powders that was incredibly popular back in 2016, and that is the Laura Mercier translucent loose setting powder. Is that, yeah, translucent loose setting powder. So I've got this. I just poured some out into the lid. And okay, so did people use a brush or did they use a puff? They used a puff, didn't they? Or they used their beauty blenders. I'm gonna use a puff. Okay, I've got a puffy. I'm gonna go right in, pick up as much powder as possible. I don't know. What am I doing? Okay, and we're, oh God, this looks so bad. Hold on. That was the point, right? We're baking it. So we're just pressing the powder. We're just gonna have a ton of excess just sitting there. Look at how dry my under eyes look. And then in like a couple minutes, right, we're gonna brush away all of the excess powder. And it's supposed to set that down like your makeup is never gonna move for like 87 hours. It's never gonna move. Okay. Oh my God, I can actually feel it. I can actually feel how dry it is. All right. Let me apply some powder to this side of my face. I'm just gonna use my Givenchy Prismly pressed powder. I do really like this pressed powder. It leaves my skin with this really beautiful satin glow. You guys have heard me talk about this quite a bit. I'm just gonna take this N20 brush from Nikki LaRose and BK Beauty. It's nice and fluffy. And I'm just going to lightly dust it under my eyes. And again, it's not something I do all the time, but it really does help with the longevity of eye makeup. Really helps prevent like smudging or smearing or anything. So I do like putting at least a little bit of powder down around my eyes. And then my nose is definitely a little bit oily, so I'll put some there. And then maybe just lightly dust the rest of my face here. Should I wipe this away? I really feel like all of the moisture getting sucked out of my eye area right here. I'm gonna take this brush actually and just brush that excess powder away. I look like a crypt keeper. Holy smokes. I mean, not only do you have to have young skin to do young skin, but you also have to have oily skin. You have to have young and oily skin. Wow. You know what? I didn't even really put powder all over my face, and I should. I remember watching, I'm gonna be referencing Jaclyn Hill a lot in this video, I apologize, but I remember watching Jaclyn Hill. She would be buffing powder in, and she would be doing it so hard, she would be bouncing in her seat, and I was like, why does she have to go so hard? I mean, I get that you want to buff, but yeah, I was always like so curious as to why it had to be, yeah, just like full body buffing. So we've got contour next, because we know contour was a big thing back in 2016. The Anastasia, like the contour palette, the contour book, is that what it's called? Or am I thinking of Kevyn Aucoin? The Kevyn Aucoin contour powders. I mean, contouring was so huge. And I remember even people that were like afraid of it, they were like, I'm gonna try it, I'm gonna try it. And it was just like, it wasn't just the cheekbones, it was like the nose and like the socket area, which I don't really have, under the lip, like anywhere you could contour, it was all about contouring. I liked contouring like underneath my cheekbones because I feel I have a really wide face, so I feel like that at least gives me like some angles. But yeah, people took their contouring very seriously in 2016. And there was an indie brand, and man, did I want this contour book, but they kept selling out, and the contour powder was literally just like gray. It had no brown in there at all. It was literally gray. It was like theatrical makeup. Anyway, I'm gonna use, well, I was gonna use the Charlotte Tilbury Sculpt powder. I like remembered it being more gray than it is. I mean, I could actually use one of my Viseart shadows. I pulled this out because I was gonna use this for eyeshadow. Let's just start with the Charlotte Tilbury. Let's not get too crazy. So I'm gonna use my Rephr 22 brush, and I'm gonna contour a lot. This was definitely a trend I got into. Like I said, I have a very round face, so it was nice to have the opportunity to kind of like carve it out a little bit more. What I didn't do was like my nose and everything else, but I went real ham when it came to my cheeks, I would say this was pretty normal for me. And looking at it today, that's crazy. That looks crazy. But I'm gonna take a eyeshadow brush and actually go into my nose here. Put a little contour there. Put a little contour here. Maybe I will take this warm gray color just with the eyeshadow brush. God, that's pigmented. And just add some, like, contour the contour, you know? And then I feel like, oh my God, weren't people like baking underneath their contour to make it even more like cut? Should I try that, or was that just with cream contour? I don't know. I can try it though. Let's try it. I remember people definitely use their beauty blender because the beauty blender has like that nice point to it. I have some, but they're not readily accessible. So I'm going to stick with this puff. And oh my God, what am I doing? Let me draw the line first. No, I don't know. I can't recall if they did it with cream and powder contour to kind of like clean up the line, or if it was just cream. Anyway, let's just let that sit there, really dry out my skin some more. And if I were to contour today, I would probably use this powder, but just a lot less. So I'm just gonna use the same brush and probably not be so like deliberate with my placement. Yeah, that looks good enough. Okay, and then bronzer. I don't know, I feel like on this side I probably wouldn't go in with an extra bronzer. However, I do remember in 2016, there was the whole like, this is the difference between contour and bronzer. And I know a lot of people use bronzers for contour. There was a lot of like mixing of the two, but I am going to use a little bit of bronzer just to really bring home that 2016 look. So I'm going to brush away this powder. I don't know if it made a difference. I'm gonna brush away that powder. And then I brought out the Makeup by Mario Soft Sculpt Blurring Bronzer because this is a bronzer with like no sheen or anything. And you guys know me, I love my cheek products with like a little bit of radiance, but this does not have any. So I'm going to just use a big fluffy brush. This is a Sonia G brush. And just lightly dust this all over. And if I were to do a little bit of bronzer on this side, I would use something like this Laura Mercier Bronze Color Infusion in number 10. And it's got a sculpt and a glow side, but I just kind of mix the two together so I get this nice kind of glowy bronze. And I'm gonna use my BK Beauty 106 brush. All right, now for blushes. So blushes that were really big back then were like the Tarte Amazonian Clay blushes. Those were huge. And then, do you guys remember the Marc Jacobs Air blushes? Oh, God, those were so good. So, so good. I do think Marc Jacobs is coming back out with a beauty line. I think that's coming this year sometime, but I think it's completely reimagined. Anyway, I dug through my collection for some matte or, you know, skin-like kind of blushes, and I pulled out the Hung Van Gogh in Second Language. This is his very beautiful velvet blush. And the technique that we were all doing, well, I don't know about all of us, but the technique that was going around was that draping. So it was sort of this idea that you could contour with your blush, or you could mix all of it in with like your bronzer and your contour, and you would do it from like your temples all the way down. So that's what I'm gonna do. It's a very blush heavy look, but because I like to generally apply blush to like the apples of my cheeks, it's heavy in a completely different way. It's like more like on the side of your face rather than like the front plane of your face. So I've got my Refer number 19 brush, and I'm gonna start over here actually, and just sweep up. Yeah, the focus of the blush was like more over here. Even though I feel like that Laura Mercier gave me a good amount of like color on my cheeks, I'm not sure that I would need extra blush for my 2026 side. I'm gonna use the Ilia Soft Focus Blurring Blush because I love these so much. And I feel like this really epitomizes like current day blushes. So I've got my Refer, actually this is just one of their test brushes. And I'm just gonna Add a bit here with that beautiful glow. And as you guys know, I like to focus my blush right here and then just bring it out a little bit, but I like to put a lot more kind of in the center of my face. And I think, again, it's because of my face shape. My face is so wide. I've got like so much cheek over here that if I just do it on the side of my face, it would look kind of strange. Yeah, like I feel like there's so much real estate here that's just missing color. Okay, and now for highlight. I actually have a highlight from 2016. Yep, I kept it. This is the very first collaboration between Victoria Beckham and Estee Lauder, and they came out with this modern Mercury highlighter. Do you guys remember this? Do you remember this gorgeous beauty? Oh my God. I don't even know. I was gonna say, I don't know if this still works, but yeah, I don't know if this still works. It sure does. It sure does still work. Oh my God. Now this highlight, admittedly, I didn't really care because I just thought it was so beautiful. I wore it all the time. But admittedly, it's a little deep for my skin tone as a highlighter. It's actually like a better blush topper, if you will. But look at how gorgeous that is. How gorgeous was this packaging? I mean, makeup was, it was so well thought out back then, I have to say, even if I didn't agree so much with like all the techniques and the full coverage and the matte, whatever, but it was just, yeah, it was just really, really well done. It was right before when everything like really exploded. I feel like it was 2016. I think things were like really like, you know, catching on and like speeding up, but it was right before like the explosion. The other highlighter I pulled out is the Anastasia Amrezy highlighter. Yep, I still have this too. I think this came out later though. I think this came out later than 2016, so I'm gonna put that away, but I did want to just show you that because that one was gorgeous. And I think what was hot in 2016 were the Anastasia, oh my God, were the glow kits? Is that what they were called? I had like every single one. It had, it was like the paper packaging and it had like 4 removable pans in there. You guys, I loved those glow kits. The 2016 definitely was like the year of Anastasia Beverly Hills for sure. What I'm also gonna pull out from back of the day is a fan brush. This is the Wang number 15 brush. I never really got into the fan brush. So everyone was using a fan brush to apply their highlight, you guys remember? And all it would do would just like lightly dust the product on. And I really, personally, I really liked working product into my skin. I didn't like when it just sort of sat on top. It was so obvious. It's just never my thing, but I'm gonna do that today. So I'm gonna go into this Modern Mercury. I'm gonna use this 15 brush. Look at that highlight. And of course, the highlight has to be really, really obvious. We can't blend it in too much. It has to look like it's just sitting on top, sitting on top of everything else. And I wanted to bring it down my nose, but maybe let's do it on the side here. My God. And then on the tip. This I never got into either. This whole like highlighting the tip of your nose. Oh God, that made the contour look so much stronger. Well, that's what it's supposed to do, right? Hold on. I never really got into the highlighting the tip of your nose or the top, like the Cupid's bow here, because it just looked like, I don't know, it looked like you were like your nose was running. I never really liked that. Or like you were kind of like drooling or something. I never really liked that. But anyway, I'll do that for this video. I don't think I have enough highlight on. I'm gonna just put a little more. I mean, that is, can you believe this is 10 years old? And look at how gorgeous that still is. Wow. Okay, you guys know, on occasion, I still do like the really bright highlighter, but generally, I'd say 90% of the time, I like one that's, you know, just on the more subtle side. So I'm gonna use the CL Glow and Protect SPF 50. This is in shade Piper. And, you know, cream highlights are just generally less metallic and shiny than their powder counterparts. So I'm just gonna tap that in and that's it, and not highlight any other part of my face. Okay, eyebrows. Oh my God, eyebrows were such a thing. They were such a thing that most people, well, a lot of beauty YouTubers, they were doing their eyebrows first because they would like cut into them. I mean, fill them in. They were like rock solid brows. And again, it was never really my thing. I probably filled them in a little bit more than I do now, but it just never was really my thing. So I don't even have like brow tools to do that. So I'm just gonna be filling in and doing as much as I can with this particular brow, but it's still not gonna reach like the levels of 2016. I mean, we had like brow kits and people had their special like angled brushes and oh my gosh, I remember the whole thing. So I would say the Benefit products were probably the biggest brow products back then, probably still are. So I've got the Precisely My Brow Detailer in shade number 4. And this is like the super micro fine point. So I'm gonna start there and really fill in. I mean, I think, you know, people would like draw this like line here and then fill in from the line. It was like a whole thing. And I just remember thinking like my brows just looked huge whenever I did that, but we're gonna try it. And I remember Kathleen Lights would always make a joke about her brows. Of course, now I can't remember it verbatim, but it was something like they should look like sisters and like not cousins or something. Like they should not look identical, but not look so far apart that they're cousins. Sisters, not cousins? I don't know. Am I making that up? I feel like she said that back in the day. Oof, that's a lot of brow, huh? And yet I still don't feel like this is half as like penciled in and like worked out as most of the beauty YouTubers in 2016. Let me actually put in a brow gel. I'll use my Dior Onset Brow Gel because this is in black, just to really bring it home. I don't think the super fluffy brows were out yet. Oh, but you know what was really, really huge was the Glossier Boy Brow. So were the fluffy brows really big in 2016? I think it was more just like the really shaped out ones. And then I think the fluffiness came maybe a couple years later. But I do feel like I should use the Glossier Boy Brow. I do have it in shade gray. And they didn't have gray back then. I remember I had to use, I think it was just brown. Maybe brown or black, but gray is definitely better for my brows. But yeah, it was all about... Look at that brow, living its best life. Hi. Now, for this side, you guys know, I don't do much with my brows. I'm just gonna throw in the Dior Onset Brow Gel, just to kind of like tame them a little bit. Fill it in a little bit. I also don't think brows are not quite as fluffy as they have been. They're still, I think, on the fuller side, right? But not as fluffy. Okay, anyway, moving on from brows. Wow. That's a 2016 brow if I ever did see one. Oh yeah. Eyes. You guys, it was all about Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance. That palette like took the beauty world by storm. Of course, I don't have one anymore. I do remember thinking that the formula was really, really soft and powdery. I had never experienced anything like that before. And you know, I remember trying to use that palette, and there were a few shades in there that I can use, but so many of the shades in that palette were just like red tone, just really, really warm. And it just didn't really suit me that much. But anyway, I'm gonna try and mimic that with a few other palettes that were very, very hot back in 2016, like the Viseart Neutral palette. You guys, this was, I mean, so hot back in 2016. I'll never forget when I first started my channel. I put up my first beauty video in 2017. It was like, I had to get this palette. It was very expensive. It was $80, which is still expensive, but today's standards, I feel like there's plenty of other palettes that are more than that. But it was like, I was saving up all my pennies. I was just dying to get this palette. I was so excited to get it. So this is not the one from 2016. This is a newer one, thank goodness. But I do have a couple of palettes. I think I got these maybe in like 2018. It was the first time I went to IMATS. And Beautylish had a booth there, and that was the only place at that time where you could get Natasha Denona. And I got both of the 28 pan palettes. So I know these have been around since at least 2016, but I think I personally purchased these in 2018. That's how old these are. I may use them. I may. That was the green brown, and then this is the blue purple. So we're gonna try and do a very warm 2016 eye look over here. I was looking up because I was like, what were some like eyeshadow, other than the colors, right? Warm was it. What were some of the trends in terms of like an eye look? And I kept coming up with cut crease. You guys, I cannot do a cut crease, okay? First of all, I don't have the bone structure for it. It doesn't really quite make sense on Asian eyes. It just looks really, really weird. I just don't have like the artistic ability to do that. But we'll try and maybe we'll do a halo eye, because those were really big then too. But we're gonna do something. I wish I had false lashes, because those were also really big back then too. All right. I am gonna go in with the Viseart Neutral Palette. And I remember one thing that everyone always had to do was to put down like a shadow all over their eyelid that was kind of the same tone as their skin tone. It was kind of like their idea of a primer. I don't know, I never really did that. I always felt like I ended up looking like I just had so much makeup on my eyelid. Anyway, I'm gonna try it today. I've got a refer number 33. I'm gonna go into this shade right here. So the second to the lightest shade. And I'm just gonna put this down all over. I mean, it was a nice way to kind of like even out your eyelid. I also think eye primers were really big. I don't have any eye primers, unfortunately. The only eye primer that I actually really, really liked and I felt like made a difference was the NARS, or is the NARS primer. I think that's still around. It came in that white tube with the black cap and had like a doe foot applicator. That is a really good primer. Mine got too old and I just never really replaced it, but that's a good one. That doesn't actually look half bad. I'm gonna open up this green brown palette, see if I can get some real like warm shades. Oh, there's definitely some warm shades in the purple blue. Oh yeah, I got some nice warm shades over here with the green brown, this column right here. So I'm gonna take my Refer Shoto number 3 brush. We're gonna do a real strong crease. I feel like that was also really big. We just don't really do that anymore, right? Like a real like carved out kind of eyeshadow look. I don't know, I feel like that looks kind of dated, but we're gonna do it. I'm gonna go into this matte shade here. I don't even know if these have any pigmentation left. It may not even blend. I mean, these shadows are so old. Okay, I'm gonna put it right in my socket line here. Blend that in. I remember the idea of like a transition shade. That was really, that was really important. I don't really hear people talk about that too much anymore either. This would actually make a pretty good transition shade. Okay, I'm gonna take my A504. I'm gonna go into this deeper brown shade over here and really get in that crease there. Really define that eyeball. But yeah, that first shade actually is turning into a great transition shade because this is blending right into that. I'm gonna take a little bit more of that first color and go back in here. Kind of doing like a little bit of a cut crease, huh? What do you think? Does that look like, is that convincing? I'm in the purple blue or blue purple palette. I'm gonna go into this shade over here. It's like this bright copper shade. And I've got the Refer 01 mini brush. And, oh wait, if I'm gonna try and do like a halo eye. Sorry, I had to think it through. So to make it bright, so it just has to be contrasting. So I should put a different color down first and then maybe put this shade down just in the center. That's probably what I should do. Okay, let me put that aside. One moment, please. I've got my A501 brush, just like a fluffy flat shader. And what kind of contrasting color should I do? Do I need something even brighter if I'm gonna do a halo? I'm gonna go into this shade right next door. It's like a champagne. And I'm gonna put this all over. And then I'm gonna take that copper and just put it right in the center. I don't know if that's bright enough. I feel like I need something even brighter. I'm gonna take this very flat, small shader brush, and I'm sorry, there's no labeling on here. I don't know where it's from. I'm gonna go into a really bright golden shade. I'm gonna go into this silver. It's not exactly warm. I was hoping to do like a warm look, but I need something bright, I'm realizing, if I really want to pull off like a halo eye. So I'm just gonna pick some of that up. I don't think this is very effective, but you see what I'm trying to do, right? Have you guys been doing halo eyes lately? I'm actually gonna put some on my lower lash line, but I want to put like a color on down there. So I'm gonna actually take that copper color and drag that along my lower lash line. I'm also gonna put some of that color over here and put a little bit of that silver color there. All right, so that's the eyeshadow. It looks a little messy here. All right, that is the eyeshadow look. Wow, that is so dramatic. Wait, we still have eyeliner to do. I'm gonna do this eye really quickly because you guys probably know what I'll do. I'm just gonna do a one and done with this Merit Solo Shadow. This is in Glossy. And I'm gonna take a big fluffy brush. This is Refer B01 and just blend this out all over. Okay, done with eyeshadow. Done with eyeshadow for 2026. You guys, I still have the Tom Ford liquid eyeliner. This is that dual-ended one. This is called the Eye Defining Pen. Do you guys remember this? Was this hot in 2016 or this came a little bit later? A little bit later maybe? I think it was Tati that really made this one popular. Anyway, this is not from all the way back then. I would not keep like a liquid eye product for that long. This is definitely much more recent. But anyway, I have to do a wing liner. I mean, it's 2016. It was like the time of the wing liners. So if you guys are not familiar with this dual-ended liquid eyeliner pen, it has one very fine end and then one end, both brush tip, one end that's a little bit longer, a little bit thicker. So if you shake it up, you'll hear the little ball in there. And this was just a really, really easy pen to use, especially if you're not good at liquid liner. Popular for a reason. My only issue with this pen, is because I need to get real close to the mirror when I'm doing this. This is a very long pen. And I remember I would keep like hitting whatever mirror that I had whenever I use this. So hopefully I'm not as bad as I was, but I probably am. So we'll see what happens. So I'm gonna try. You guys know, I've maybe done like a handful of wing liners in my entire life. So this will be real interesting. I gotta get real close. And then it was always this part that screwed me up. The bringing it back and bringing it back and filling it in. Is that right? Or I feel like it should come from like the top of my lid a little bit more, but then that's just like a lot of liner. I don't know, maybe it should come up higher. Did I draw it too flat? I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing, but I think that's the best it's gonna get. That's for sure. You know what I do miss about these liquid eyeliners is that once they set down, they do not smudge. That is definitely the benefit of these liquid liners. They're just really hard to use. I find them, they're just unforgiving. Really hard to use. You have to have a really steady hand. Yeah, they're just not great. They're not great. Anyway, that's my wing liner. That's as good as it's gonna get. Okay, I'm just taking a black eyeliner. This is the Makeup Forever Artist Color Pencil in, I think it's just black. Oh, 100, whatever black. And because that was never enough, we would also tight line upper and lower lash lines. Oh God, I got that everywhere, jeez. Okay, before I do eyeliner on this side, I am gonna curl my lashes for both sides. And I think, you know, most people wore fake lashes because if you did this like really giant winged liner, your lashes just disappeared, you know, like disappeared into the background of the liner. So I totally get it, but because I didn't do that either, it was like I didn't need to do either. Anyway, I'm gonna use, or try and use like a more volumizing mascara. Do I have one? I'm gonna use this Lancome Lashy Doll Flutter extension. What were some of the big mascaras back then? 2016, was it like Better Than Sex? I actually feel like that was maybe 2017 or 2018. And I'm gonna use my Benefit Roller Lash for this side. And for eyeliner on this side, I'm gonna use my Sarah Creole, the Eyes Up. This is in the shade Everyday Taupe. Some eyeshadow fallout. Yeah, it looks a little crazy under there. All right, we've just got lips left over. So I don't have, as you guys know, I don't have a lot of matte lipsticks, and that's what was huge in 2016, the matte liquid lipstick. And I remember trying them. The Jeffree Star brand was really huge then. I did like the bright pink packaging. I did get a couple of those. But again, with my dry ass skin, I was like, I just couldn't take it. It was so uncomfortable. I also suffer from eczema, and where I get eczema the most and the worst is along my upper lip right here. So yeah, I just kind of like stayed away from the whole like liquid lipstick craze. As far as I went were like just sort of like satin or matte finish like lipsticks or whatever, full coverage matte lipsticks, but they were never that comfortable to me. I mean, if you guys have been watching me since, you know, since my first video in 2017, you know, those were not big for me ever. But I did have some matte lipsticks from Prada because I've pretty much decluttered most of them because I never reach for them. I do like the idea of them. The look of them I think is really cool. I do think the matte lipstick of today is very, very different from the matte lipstick of 2016. And I think the look of it is also really different, where it used to be this like concealer lip, just flat, matte, really dry look. Now I feel like it's more of this sort of like soft blurring effect. But anyway, I've got this Prada monochrome soft matte lipstick, and this is in the shade, I can't see. I think it's B101. I'm not sure. I'll put it down below in the description box. But it's this guy right here. I think the Kylie lip kits were really big, but you know what I think is interesting is now the really like contoured lip liner is bigger now than it was then. I think back then there was like maybe a little bit of like a contour situation, but it's not as prominent as it is in 2026. I think we're more all about like matchy-matchy. I probably should have just put Tarte Shape Tape on my lips and called that my lipstick for the 2016 side. Okay, and for the 2026 side, since we are more into the contour lip situation, I'm gonna put on the Westman Atelier Jarrev lip liner. I need to sharpen this. And then I'm gonna use the Sarah Creole lip gloss. This is in On Top, and the lip gloss is called No Further Questions. I really feel like I need to like really bring this side home. I think I will put a little bit of concealer down. Hold on. I'm kind of doing like an ombre look here, but yeah, this looks more 2016. The Prada lipstick, I think it was too natural. It was far too natural for 2016. Yeah, we're gonna get that concealer lip dry look going. You know, setting sprays were also really, really big back in 2016, but the biggest one, of course, being like the Urban Decay All Nighter, but they don't have those anymore. There was the whole issue with Scandinavia. If you liked that, just purchase it straight from Scandinavia. These days, I'm loving the Patrick Star One Size Powder Melt. It's really hard to just spray on one side. So you know what, I'm gonna forego that, but it was worth mentioning because yeah, that Urban Decay All Nighter, that was the bomb. Your makeup would not move. It wouldn't move. And a tip that I got from my drag queen friends is if you really don't want your makeup to move, then spray the setting spray, like something like an all-nighter, between each layer of makeup. So like you put your foundation down, spray. Put concealer down, spray. Put like between every step, or between like major steps, like all of your base products, great. Then all of your cheek products, great. And then like all of your eyeshadow, another one. And then maybe when you're all done, just another for good measure. But that's how you really get your makeup to stay like all day, all night, no matter what you're doing. Anyway, how do you like 2016? Do you like 2016 Michele or 2026 Michele? I mean, this is this is very glam for me. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I loved this little walk down memory lane to 10 years ago, a time before I was on YouTube, but I was definitely consuming a lot of beauty YouTube, which inspired me to start my channel. So 2016, it's a year that I look back on very, very fondly. But please, please let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Do you still have makeup that you love? Not from 2016, hopefully you've gotten rid of that, but like makeup trends or makeup products that you've repurchased since 2016? Or do you still do your makeup the same way as 2016? Or were you not even wearing makeup back then? Anyway, I would love to hear from you. And thank you so much for tuning in. Subscribe down below if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video.